Hi, welcome back to Talooli Trails. I'm Jeff. And today, we're not going to take a hike. Today we've gone to the nature den here at Camp Talooli like all the kids do. And one of the things that happens is kids come to camp, and sometimes I think that they imagine that being in the woods is like going to a zoo, that we can guarantee you're going to see certain kind of animals. But the truth is, usually you don't get to see the animals, they hear you coming. But sometimes we get lucky enough to find good evidence of the animals that we have here. For example, if I was walking along and I picked up this, I think most people would recognize it as a deer antler. But the truth is that can you tell the story from the deer antler? First off, the back of the deer antler has not been cut off, it fell off. The male deer lose their antlers every winter, and they grow new ones every spring. So this is from a naturally dropped antler. The other thing that you can tell in the story is that there's big chunks of the antler which have been chewed away by rodents. One of the things people often misunderstand is that bones and antlers are not long for this world once they fall on the forest floor, because the forest critters like the chipmunks and squirrels and so forth will chew these things right up for their mineral content, mostly things like calcium and so forth. So we don't see bones as often as you might think. But there's always stories to be told. Sometimes we get even more lucky and we find actual skulls or bones. This is the skull of one of the largest animals here in Camp Talooli. And the bottom jaw is missing, and we don't quite know why this animal died, but all things die. In this case, the bone is left. And you know, if you look at it, there's a lot of things that the skull can tell you. They can tell you this animal's eye sockets are pointing more or less forward, had a long nose, probably had a good sense of smell, pretty good size. If we look at the teeth are not sharp and pointy, not a meat eater. This is the kind of teeth used by an animal that has to grind up very rough tree buds and bark all winter long. And right back here, there's another clue. There are bumps on the back, on the top of the skull. And these are the bumps where the antlers were. Yeah, this is a deer skull, and not only that, but a male deer skull. Remember, the deer are going to lose their antlers every fall. So this is probably a male deer that died in the winter. We don't quite know why. Now, if I was a forensic scientist, I wouldn't need to find all the clues to kind of figure out the story. In this case, part of the skull of this animal is broken and missing, but we still have enough pieces that we can piece together what kind of an animal it was and how it lived its life. You see the bright yellow lower teeth? These are incisors. Bright yellow teeth say rodent, and this is huge for a rodent. In fact, this is our largest local rodent, and if we open up the jaw, we can see the teeth are very flat. This is an animal which chews just plants, strictly a plant eater, and it grinds the plants up that way. Also notice that the eye sockets show that this animal is looking up all the time, looking up because that's where the predators would be. So this is a prey animal, and this is a beaver. And North American beaver can get up to about 60 pounds. So it's one of really the heaviest and largest animals we have at Camp Talooli. If you look at this animal and you compare it to this one, can you see the similarities? This is another common animal here at camp. Again, yellow incisors. Again, the eyes are looking up. The basic shape is kind of similar. Both of these animals would swim in the lake looking up for predators. So this is a beaver and this is a muskrat. And muskrats are really cute animals. They're about 1 foot long or so, and they're really good at swimming in the lake, and they have burrows on the side of the lake. But they also they eat almost strictly plants, and occasionally they eat mussels. In fact, a while back we had a question, which was what was probably responsible for eating all those mussels that we found on the edge of the lake. It was almost certainly one of these guys, because with those sharp incisors, they could open up those clamshells and make a meal. They don't usually eat a lot of meat, but in the wintertime, sometimes that's all they can find. Now, this is a very different kind of an animal here at camp. Not only it is pretty good size, in fact, again, this can be upwards of about 60 pounds here at camp, but this is clearly got large pointy teeth for grabbing prey and sharp teeth for cutting through meat. So this is the biggest meat eater we have in camp, and this is a coyote. Eastern coyotes are really a neat animal. It's our top order predator here in the woods, and we got lucky when we found this one. And again, in this case, the eyes are going to face forward because it has binocular vision for hunting. It has a long nose for getting a good sense of smell, and a pretty good sized brain back here, so it's a smart animal and very adaptable. If we look at this animal and we compare it to this one, a little different. Now, this one has lost most of its teeth, but when I flip it over, you can see that this coyote has very sharp teeth almost like a steak knife for cutting off pieces of meat. This one has teeth that are a little bit more like yours, more kind of flattened, a little bumpy, because this is an animal that can eat meat but will also eat plants. This is an omnivore. It's going to eat just about anything it finds. So look at the shape of this head. The nose is a little bit long, not as long as a coyote. The eyes are facing forward again, like a hunter. Got a big brain for its body. This is a very inquisitive, very smart animal, can figure out all kinds of things. Very common. This is a raccoon. Now the raccoon has a couple of big incisors up here that have fallen out of this skull, but they can grab live prey. They can also find things that are dead, and they also eat a lot of plants. So now it's time for our skull quiz. This is a broken piece of skull, but there's enough stuff here you can tell what this is. First, look at the size of it. Pretty big compared to my hands. The eyes would have been out here. The lower jaw would have been over here. And it looks a little bit like this, maybe a little bit smaller. Now we saw this one earlier, and these were the knobs where the antlers were on the male deer. This one does not have knobs. Have you figured it out? You're right. This is a deer, but this is a female deer. Just a piece of it, that there's enough to let us figure it out. And now it's time for the ultimate dead stuff quiz. This is one of my favorite animals in Camp Talooli. It's got a lot of cool stuff going on. Extremely long, pointed nose. Eyes that kind of look up a little bit, more of a prey animal. But when we look underneath here, there's enough teeth left to remind us this thing has lots of tiny teeth, lots of holes where the other teeth were. In fact, this animal has more teeth than any North American mammal. It has a long snout, lots of tiny little teeth, not for chasing down prey, but for finding insects or finding pretty much anything it can to eat. It's also got a ridge in the top of its head. That ridge is where muscles would attach to its lower jaw to give him a lot of bite strength so he can kind of chew up whatever he found. So here's my quiz for you. Long pointy snout, most teeth of any North American animal, reasonably common at Camp Talooli. And it's a nighttime animal that the kids hardly ever see. So you can go ahead and send us a message through Facebook or through Instagram and with your best guess for what kind of an animal this is. So long for now. We'll see you next time on Talooli Trails.
If I stand very still, I bet you can't see me.